my fellow makeup enthusiasts, welcome to my first impressions of the Jeffree Star Bloodlust palette. My name is Lainey, and since this is a first impressions video, you can bet your sweet ass that there are going to be some ratchet swatches coming at you very, very soon. But first, let's open this up and reveal the beautiful royal purple velvet palette. And as my vet always says when he pulls Sylvester off the scale, you're a big boy, aren't ya? So yeah, we all know that this is big, but we all also know that the extent to which size matters is entirely subjective. So I'm going to crack this open in just a little bit, but first let me tell you how this arrived. It was 9 a.m. I hadn't even finished my third Red Bull, and there was a knock at my door. It was the mail. It was this. And I got so excited. I threw my hair back. I slapped on the makeup. And as soon as I slapped it on, I went, fuck me, I should have filmed that. Sorry, I did not film the application. I kind of hate filming myself putting on makeup, but as it is, this is kind of a wear test because I've been wearing this makeup since about 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning. It is now 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so that gives you some idea of how well it wears. It is hot as balls outside today. I live in Houston. It is damn near 80 degrees outside. I have been sweating, and this makeup has held up really, really well. But allow me to comment on the stamina of these shadows and the way that they wear throughout the day. Go ahead and zoom in. Do not judge me if my application is not perfect. I have never claimed to be a professional makeup artist. I will say that over the course of the day, the shadows kind of began to blend themselves. There was more of a separation of color when I first put this makeup on. Now it's more blended, which might actually be better. I'm not sure, but I really did kind of want that purple, let's see, I can't remember the shade names. Oh, I'm a bad palette mommy. Blood Queen. I really wanted Blood Queen to stand out in the outer V. And then, what is your name? Vivid Blood. I kind of did a halo type eye with Vivid Blood on either side. Has it stood the test of time? Yes, it's still there, but it really has kind of blended into pink magic. And then I also had a little bit of Dungeon kind of as a wing when I started off this morning. I think that just kind of got eaten by Blood Queen. And you know what? It's fine the way it looks. I don't mind it. Oh, but the one other thing that I will say that is not at all the fault of this palette, this shade called Wet Jewel, I used that as my inner corner highlight. It is gone. That is not the shadow's fault. No matter what I do, my inner corner highlight is gone after a few hours, and that is because of the oils in the inner corner of my eye. I always have to reapply that unless I use like a Stila glitter and glow product. These will stay put, and that's why I tend to reach for these for an inner corner highlight. So yeah, this shade Wet Jewel is gone. We're gonna pop a little bit more back in the inner corner. Okay, welcome back to the inner corner, Wet Jewel. Now, I know that I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place because before I really do a deep dive into talking about the shadows and the quality and the performance, I had intended to start this video off by giving you a little history lesson. If you find this kind of thing boring, I will put a timestamp right here where I will be showing you ratchet swatches, so feel free to skip ahead, but I find this very interesting. I wanted to talk to you about the history of purple as a color associated with royalty. Back in the days of the ancient Phoenicians, purple fabric dye could only be produced from a very specific type of mollusk living in a very specific region of the Mediterranean Sea. You get the mollusk, You squeeze it, some yellowish pus-like goo comes dripping out. That yellowish pus-like goo oxidizes and turns purple. Voila, you have fabric dye. So because royal purple fabric dye was so difficult to come by, so painstaking to produce, it became known as a status symbol. It was expensive. It signified wealth, nobility, power, royalty, and that carried over to England, specifically under the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. Only the royalest of the royals were allowed to wear purple. So that was pretty elitist. Does that remind anybody of a fictitious elitist family, maybe from Game of Thrones? And I'm looking over there because my Game of Thrones world map is on that side of the wall. I'm thinking of the Lannisters. Fun fact, that purple was originally called Tyrian purple, after the region of the Mediterranean where those weird mollusks were found. Flash forward to the mid-1800s, and a chemist by the name of William Henry Perkins was trying to synthesize a drug to treat malaria. Well, he accidentally invented synthetic purple fabric dye. I'm not sure on the details of that, but at any rate, once we had synthetic purple fabric dye, suddenly the middle classes could afford to
start wearing purple, wearing purple.
And now that you have sat through my geekiness, let's go ahead and get to the ratchet swatches. Obviously, you can only tell so much from an arm swatch, but I heard a lot of people complaining about these really light shades long before anybody actually got their grubby little fingers into these shadows and smeared the shadows on their oily little eyelids. So I wanted to comment on that. These lighter shades do, for me at least, serve a purpose. This shade right here, called Your Majesty, I think. Yes, Your Majesty. I apologize, my eyesight is shite, so I'm gonna have to get close to this palette more than once. Anyway, Your Majesty is very helpful to me, at least, for kind of blending things out, for helping me clean up little mistakes, but I say it's helpful for me. Keep in mind that I am a gross English titty vampire. So if you have a deeper skin tone, that might not work so well. Perhaps that is not inclusive, and I can understand that argument. What other shades have raised some questions? Okay, so I have trouble getting this shade to work. Scandal Water. Love that name. It's got a goblet. It makes me think of the purple wedding on Game of Thrones. There's a lot in this palette that actually really makes me think of Game of Thrones without it being a direct reference to Game of Thrones. Anyway, so this purple wedding shade, Scandal Water, it doesn't want to stick to my eyelid very well. That could just be me. I'm gonna play with it some more. I think it's a gorgeous shade. It's kind of this bluish violet, so I really wanna try to work with it some more. I will be doing a second video where I do a whole shitload of looks. I'm not sure exactly how many I'm gonna be able to crank out. Vile Serpent swatched really well. I am extremely excited to use this in a Slytherin inspired look. I think that that is incredibly appropriate, and I'm also extremely Good Lord, I can't talk. I am also super excited, gonna have to get close, to use Bleeding Heart. I have a really cool editorial look in mind that involves Bleeding Heart and Sir Ilan Payne. Oh, I'm sorry, Executioner. But really the bottom line for me, for now, I will say more in the next video, is that I like having light shades in the palette. I don't mind pastel shades if they work. Jeffree Star's pastels tend to work really, really well. And so far, except for Scandal Water, I have not had a problem with any of the pastels, and I still have hopes for this one. So because I'm constantly trying to fight my deep set eyes and try to keep them out of the shadow and brighten up the inner part of my eye, I appreciate having light shades, but I can totally understand that if you have a different eye shape, that might not mean anything to you, and it might be kind of annoying if you're wanting more dark dramatic shades. Do we have plenty of dark dramatic shades in this palette? Well, for me, I have enough dark dramatic shades, but for other people, there might not be enough. And before I sign, oh, you bit me, you fucker. Ow. Before I sign off and go prepare for my multiple looks video, I wanted to say something a little bit controversial. Maybe that's why Bloodlust bit me. So I get a somewhat similar vibe from this palette to the vibe that I get from this palette. Yes, this is Lunar Beauty, Manny MUA, Moonspell. So they are not identical. I do not believe by any means that they are at all, that Bloodlust is at all a copycat palette, but I'm thinking especially for like pinky purple looks, they are kind of similar. I feel like you could get this look out of this palette. It might not be quite as sparkly, but I feel like you could get a similar look. Now, of course, you don't have the red shade in here. You don't have the beautiful Ilan Payne shade. I'm sorry, Executioner. You don't have the really sparkly light pinks. I feel like this, in terms of versatility, is definitely superior, but I just wanted to comment. It bit me again. It's really mad at me. I still love you. I'm not trying to start a fight. Give me a break. I just feel like you could probably get a couple of similar looks out of these palettes. So if you can't afford this palette right now, but you happen to have this palette, you could probably satisfy your urges with this just in the meantime. So I'm going to go lick my wounds and prepare for my multiple looks video. I think I'm going to shoot for 5 and probably crank out 3 at any rate. As I said, that will be up by Thursday. So that wraps it up for today. As always, thank you guys so very much for joining me. Follow me on Instagram. I will follow you back. Throw me a pity like, give me some encouragement to make some more videos. Very special shout out to you if you are watching this video on the toilet. And until next time, enjoy your joy responsibly and regally.